Today on the news and why it matters, it's hump day. The Trump administration scrapping the Flores settlement agreement because obviously he hates children and he's racist. A lot to talk about there. And the media meltdown over Trump's latest comments. And yes, we also may or may not be discussing Fredo Cuomo himself. Obviously a lot to get into. It starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by the Glenn Beck radio program's own Stu Burgier.
That's me. Thank you. I like the title.
The Glenn Beck radio program's
you just say the
own.
Yeah.
But it's the only Stu Burgier
That's true.
himself.
That's true. Very few Stu Burgiers out there, from my understanding.
And author of The Smallest Minority, Kevin Williamson. Thanks for joining us. Jason Howerton, the Blaze's own social media guru.
Yeah, I'm on too.
You guys, we own you guys. Got a lot to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, realestateagentsitrust.com. If you are looking to buy or sell your home, listen up. No pressure. It's just like the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life. And you want to make sure that you're using a real estate agent who actually knows what they're doing. Stu, correct me if I'm wrong. The right way to find a real estate agent is to go for the guy on the billboard that's smiling really creepily at you.
Yeah, if they have the nice smile. You have to pick someone who has a nice smile.
White teeth.
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like it could be about to commit a crime. That's the person you want. Anyone who's on a billboard, you can always trust.
Yeah, because you're on a billboard. So
That's
there
what
you
Real
go.
Estate Agents I Trust does. Tells you which real estate agents are on billboards.
Or Glenn, he actually formed this company because, you know, he's in radio, move around all the time, and realized there are a lot of real estate agents out there who don't know what they're doing. So Real Estate Agents I Trust just matches you with the top real estate agent in your area. Oftentimes they're listeners of the show, and they share your values. So if you're moving to a new area, you have no idea, where's my family going to be happy? Where are we going to be safe? These are the people who are going to get you where you need to be. You got to go to realestateagentsitrust.com. Like I said, you're looking to buy or sell. They've got real estate agents all across the country. They've got one where you're located or where you're going, and they can help you. realestateagentsitrust.com. So the Trump administration just announced they're doing away. They're making a rule change with the Flores settlement agreement, and so of course that is the rule that allows them to detain children, but the children cannot be held for more than 20 days on the border. Now they're changing the rules, and they're going to allow for indefinite detention of illegal immigrant families. Children and their families, of course, they will still be separated. Stu, is this obvious proof that President Trump is in fact a racist and he hates children?
It strikes me as like one of those things where I think a lot of times we'd like to oversimplify the immigration issue. That some of it's kind of hard, right? Like it's actually kind of hard to figure out. I mean, you kind of understand why Flores existed in the first place, right? And you I kind of understand Trump's position here as well. Like, you know, look, it's been abused, right? The idea initially to say, okay, you're going to limit it to 20 days is a rational sort of thing, you know? I mean, like, you're like, I don't want to keep kids in prison or kids detained for a very long time. On the other side of that, that is a clear incentive to every single person looking to cross the border that, well, if we go by ourselves, we could be detained indefinitely. If we go with a child, then we're only going to have 20 days and we're going to be released in country. So, I mean, it's essentially, a lottery ticket if this is what your goal is. And, you know, it's not just conservative media who's found examples of this. I mean, a lot of mainstream sources have reported that this is an actual problem. And, you know, the numbers are far too high. I mean, so I don't know what you do here. I mean, it's an interesting political decision, because when it comes down to it, if you're trying to make you're trying to make an argument essentially to indefinitely detain children, it might not poll very well. But I know this is certainly an issue that's important. The media is going to paint it as just proof of the racism. I think sometimes these things are actually difficult to solve, and this is one that is difficult. You can't incentivize people to continually flow over the border illegally if you want to have a border. That's a rational thing for a country to do.
You know, I saw a clip of Obama in some ad that somebody cut together of him talking about kids being brought over, and how tragic it was, and how often we don't even know the tragedies that happen on that journey.
Sure.
The ones who don't make it.
When it's coyotes bringing the kids over to exploit them, or whether it's sex trafficking, or if it's like you're saying to exploit the system. So to try to use it as a deterrent. I don't know if it was under different circumstances, under a different president, would it be looked at differently as more of a compassionate act of trying to prevent this? I mean, I don't like to think the worst in everyone, including Trump, even when I disagree with him. I don't think the intention of this is to hurt children, but that is a problem. And like, what about those kids? Like, do they matter too? Do we need to be keeping them safe as well? So I'm trying to look at it from both angles. I think you're right. I think there's good arguments to both, but to just think that, we should have safeguards in place, but I understand why we're trying to disincentivize people from doing that.
Yeah. Kevin, is this the compassionate measure to take?
Sometimes I think the compassionate thing to do in the short term is different from the compassionate thing in the long term. And obviously we don't want to be unnecessarily cruel to children or to illegal immigrants for that matter, who are adults. But our laxity in enforcing our immigration laws is a sort of attractive nuisance, which is, legal doctrine that if you basically have a pool on your property and kids play in it, you have to take steps to keep kids out of the pool. And if one of them has an accident and drowns, it's your fault because you didn't secure it. It's essentially what we've done with our border and our immigration policies. We create incentives, as you were saying, for people to break the law by being so lax about enforcement and being so indulgent about what happens for people who actually are caught. I don't know that this is actually the way to go about reversing that. But whatever steps are taken that ultimately will reverse that will be greeted the same way, as being unnecessarily cruel, as being unkind, as being uncharitable. But at some point, you're either going to have to say, well, we actually do have open borders, and that's going to be our policy, or that we are going to enforce it, and we're going to try to enforce it in a way that not only is effective, but also is effective in disincentivizing people from trying to cross illegally in the first place.
Yeah. It is frustrating at times that, you get the talking point from the mainstream media of, oh, well, Republicans are just heartless and they don't care about kids in cages. I have I want to say, well, Trump, just tell them the reason for this. We all know the reason for this. We all know that really, in actuality, this is protecting children, if you look at it. But the talking point is there and they're going to use it. And then I look and see, well, he is saying this. He is telling them. They just refuse to report it that way.
Well, I feel like
he's in a lose-lose situation.
The debate
here.
stops there for the left. Like, the left doesn't have to go any further than let them go. You know what I mean? Like, okay, then what? Like,
right.
What is your solution? Like, we let them go, and then what?
Right.
And universal health care.
Right. So to them, they don't have to explain anymore. Me, I care about the kids.
Yeah.
I don't want them indefinitely detained. I want them with their parents, but there has to be some sort of a plan to handle the massive influx and, like you said, the decades of failure. We're not talking about just under Trump. We're talking about decades and decades of just kicking this can down the road. And so I feel like it's really unfair that they don't have to make a position. They just have to say, we care about the kids, let them go.
Well, and I think there's a big problem with the media in that, like, they increasingly see themselves as not journalists, but experts on the motives of Donald Trump. Like, so they don't cover a policy. They say, well, this policy is this way because Donald Trump is racist, or because Donald Trump hates children, or because Donald Trump only is playing to his base, or whatever it is. And like, at some level, that's part of everybody's analysis. Like, you're trying to figure out who what a major figure in a news story is thinking. But they have changed this. It's become now that they know. They know his motivations. It's always the worst motivation, of course, and that's not helpful.
And the problem with that is when people come and say, well, we think Donald Trump is being dishonest or acting in bad faith or acting out of shallow, self-interested motivations. Can anyone really say, well, that doesn't sound like Donald Trump? Gosh, we would never think that about him. I mean, that's one of the problems. You say you're not inclined to necessarily think the worst of him. I sort of am most of the time. When you rarely go wrong with that.
Okay, Chris Cuomo.
You rarely go wrong with that. If the Republican Party actually were as heartless and scheming and Machiavellian as the media says it was, first of all, I would join that party. Secondly, they'd win every contest they were in, but they're not. They're actually just another political party like any other political party. Trump is an unusual figure for them in that he is so obviously emotionally transparent. He is so obviously adolescent in his outlook and so obviously shallow in his scheming that it must be tempting to do that. Now, the problem is that you hear from these reporters and from the left that, Donald Trump is the worst president ever. He's a unique danger to the country. They've said that about every Republican president since Dwight Eisenhower. And they can't always have been right.
Unless they just get worse every
Yeah, it's every time.
Mitt Romney is a threat to this republic. Really? Mitt Romney's a threat to the republic?
Yeah, that one's when it really went off the rails. I mean, Mitt Romney's more likely to bore us to death than anything else. But I think it is an increasing problem. Glenn had a person who emailed him, said he was a former skinhead many years ago, and said, a lot of people were tying the alt-right to Donald Trump, and his opinion was that, like, the alt-right actually hates Donald Trump because he likes Jews too much, which is, again, a weird freaking world we live in. But his point was that what they like about Trump is that the media refers to everybody who supports Trump as racist, and it helps deflect that off of them. They're now, it's no longer a meaningful accusation. So the alt-right sees this as helpful. Like, hey, thanks. Now you're calling everybody racist. So those people and, the regular Republican is so sick of that charge, they're more likely to listen to us.
That's like
terrifying.
almost identical to what Ricky Gervais just said the other day.
It was Ricky Gervais, by the way, who emailed Glenn.
Former skinhead.
Almost identical in that how great of a time that the real racists must be having, because it really is hard to delineate who's a Nazi anymore, because everybody's a Nazi who supports Trump, right? Like it's really a weird space to be in.
In a sense, you're creating an unintentional political coalition with people who don't really, of course, want to be in coalition with those people, but they end up being lumped in and effectively operating together, whether they intend to or not.
Yeah. We're sitting here talking about basically the media's Trump derangement syndrome. Got a couple really good examples of that when we come back.
You're gonna play the promo clip?
Yeah.
Watch
And the chosen.
Watch how deep he gets into it.
Trending right now on Twitter. Hashtag 25th Amendment now. President Trump was giving a press conference today, and he was defending the trade war with China. And I think probably just talking how Trump talks. And, well, I'll let you guys see for yourself. Watch.
Somebody said it's Trump's trade war. This isn't my trade war. This is a trade war that should have taken place a long time ago by a lot of other presidents. Over the last 5 or 6 years, China's made $500 billion. $500 billion. Ripped it out of the United States. And not only that, if you take a look, intellectual property theft, add that to it. And add a lot of other things to it. So somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China. I'm taking on China on trade. And you know what? We're winning.
My favorite part was how he looked to God to make sure it was
What the hell
like,
is he looking at?
he's like, don't strike me down when I say
looking
this.
for lightning is what he was looking for.
So, of course, there is just set everyone ablaze that Donald Trump just suggested he is the one chosen by God. He is not fit for office.
Right after calling the Jews disloyal, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's got a full spectrum messianic delusion going on there.
Yeah, Kevin, I want your take because you are, of course, you're a trade.
Not a
you're
fan.
critical of him on trade,
Yeah.
and also not a huge fan of Donald Trump. So,
And-
what do you make of these comments?
What a tool. Can I say that? I'm sorry, but I mean, who talks like this? I mean,
Donald Trump talks like this. He's been
what
talking
kind
like
of
this.
normal, grown, well-adjusted adult human being goes in front of cameras and talks this way? I mean, no, I don't think we should invoke the 25th Amendment. I don't think we should remove him from office. I think we never should have elected him in the first place. But seriously, my two things about Trump. In some ways, he's turned out to be better than I thought he would because he basically has gone along with a lot of conventional Republican stuff. In some ways, he's turned out to be worse than I thought he would. Because I really thought after the election, when I switched it over from Fox News to MSNBC, when he took Pennsylvania just to watch the Al-Qaeda hostage video over there of Rachel Maddow going, I thought eventually someone would sit him down at the desk and say, listen, idiot, you're the president of the United States of America. Grow up and act like it. And but he's not. He has run off as fast as he can in the opposite direction. And he talks like, a deranged 7-year-old he was mad about the condition of his sandbox.
Let me push back though, because this is who he's always been.
Yes, it's who he's always been.
Like he's not changed at all. And I think like it's not my cup of tea. I'm with you. Like I kind of long for like the TV president, like who just makes you feel good.
Someone boring.
Yeah, somebody boring. But at the same time, like I'm so outraged, or not even outraged isn't the right word. Like just
Tired of the media's outrage.
I'm just not surprised by any of it. So like when something like this happens, and I'm like okay, like that's like the 15th time he said something like that. Like it just doesn't faze me anymore.
No, I mean you're right. It is who he is. But okay, if you were a carnival barker, and you knew you were a carnival barker, and you got elected president of the United States, wouldn't you try to be better? Or would you just say, well, I've always been this way?
Well, okay, true.
Like,
but
I got a puppy, and I tried to become a better person.
But
I wasn't going to be the same schmuck I was always being.
what motivation does he have to change or become better? Because he was just taught, this is what got me elected. Why would I change now?
I don't know, patriotism?
But do you think he's motivated by patriotism?
No.
I think he's motivated by like at the end of the day,
he is the puppy.
He's self-interested. He's a politician
he
now
is
on
the puppy,
top
though.
of.
I think he wants to be pet. No,
Sorry.
he wants to be pet. He wants to be
become a better
complimented.
person when you got a puppy. We're learning. I think there's look, I think my implemented double standard on Donald Trump, and I have fully implemented this, which is I just don't listen to the things that he says. I just feel like if you view his presidency as a presidency that has no public figure attached to it, you can kind of analyze like Russia's a great example of this, where the things he says about Russia make me incredibly uncomfortable. Many of the policies we have towards Russia in this administration, I think, have been good, in fact, aggressive. That is like, I think when you hear him speak, first of all, the English language, not always his friend. But he says things that I think a lot of times just don't mean anything. Like, the biggest thing that offended me in that is the fact that he is still saying we're losing $500 billion to China. That is not what the trade deficit is. It is not it. And he's still saying these things. These are basic policy issues. And his trade policy out of that clip is, to me, by far the worst part of it. It is his trade war. He believes in this, and it has hurt the economy. And if anything else, he may not care about a lot of these side issues. It is risking his presidency. Mm-hmm. He is in the middle of putting his presidency on black or red to see if the recession comes before or after 2020. And I mean, you'd think just from the perspective of him wanting to remain in that office for another 4 years, someone would be able to get through to him on that issue. But it's been multiple decades of public advocacy for what used to be and still is Bernie Sanders' trade policy, and he will not abandon it.
Yeah, and you would think that the left would take that opportunity to criticize him on that.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're instead, I think we have a couple tweets. They're instead focusing on the really, really important things. Do we have these tweets that I can see, or no? Okay, there. He said, "I am the chosen one." He's not just talking about trade. He truly thinks he's the chosen one. So does his diehard base of 35% of Americans who will never leave him. Impeach, 25th Amendment now, giant meteor. I don't care. He just needs to go.
What do you need if only 35% support him? What do you need an impeachment for? He's going to be out of office in less than 2 years. Just wait.
That's what you need the giant meteor for.
There you go. Yeah.
Can I just float an alternative theory though that he says stuff like I'm the chosen one so that people don't focus on his policies and they're freaking out over this? I would not be surprised because look, every time there's
he's that cunning.
I don't look. All I'm saying is every time there's a legitimate thing to either criticize him about or to debate, like the new immigration policy, like the trade stuff. Something like this happens where it's this outlandish statement and everybody freaks out, and then that's what's trending. It's not.
I think it happens. I think the Greenland is an example of that. I think the Greenland thing was just him screwing off. There, I think that's just him being flippant.
I am the chosen one, and I will bring Greenland into the union.
One more of these tweets, just because they're funny. Y'all be saying 25th Amendment now, but then we get Pence. So it really makes matters worse. And then the world will continue to keep getting more horrible. It's really a loose situation.
Loose.
I hate those loose situations.
Take issue with what you're saying there. Yeah. He says outrageous stuff on days of the week ending in Y, not just when he's got problems. But some of our talk radio friends do this, where every dumb thing he says, well, he's just masterfully playing the media, getting them to dance along to his tune. No, he's not.
He's just, I mean, and look, he has said much worse things on that front than that. He said, I alone can solve this, right? Like he said, it's
You
another.
say this at the end, just I alone can solve.
I can solve, yeah, that's right. I alone can solve.
English.
Yeah, English is not, it's not his friend.
Not-
Y'all are saying that Trump is egocentric?
It's possible.
saying?
It's possible.
It's just a
to be
theory.
sure.
Just floating a theory.
Okay.
Really quickly, but before we go, I want to make sure, we're talking about meltdowns over things that Trump has done or said or breathed or whatever. Trump had a press conference where he dared say that he doesn't lose sleep. They're like, what do you lose sleep over? He's like, I don't, which is totally, speaking of, a Trump thing to say. Yes. Well, Chris Cuomo, bombshell revelation about what Trump said. Watch.
The president told us a very important truth today. Listen.
Is that something that keeps you up at night?
Well, nothing keeps me up at night.
Now, he was answering a question about China's military strength, but that answer is comprehensive. Just for contrast.
What is your biggest fear?
Well, there are a lot of things that keep me up at night.
I already hear the Trump folks saying Obama was weak. A strong man sleeps easy. Presidents should have a lot of heavy burdens that weigh on them and, yes, keep them up at night.
Look how
waiting
serious
for that
he is.
3 a.m. call. The need
There it
that they
is.
can't satisfy, the
There it is.
pain that they must work tirelessly to address.
Wait for it.
Look at how different. Here's a great example of this. Look at presidents when they come in and when they leave.
Oh.
I mean, come on. Look at Clinton's hair.
time
What,
difference.
white George W. Bush looks like he got a beat down.
Beat down.
Obama looks like his own grandfather. I mean, look at it. I mean, this is a very hard job because of the stress that they carry with them. Now let's look at this president. It's been almost 3 years since Trump won the presidency. Looks exactly the same. I mean, his hair is like, I don't know what's going on with that.
That is weird.
I think he's overlooking something obvious here, which is that Trump has this tough guy thing, right? He loves to let tough guys. Was it Mattis whose
Mattis,
famous
yeah.
quote was, he said, what causes you to lose sleep at night, or what keeps you up at night? And he says, nothing. I cause other people to lose sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Trump was just cribbing from
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's the thing. The media loves to pick and choose which things they take seriously from him and which they don't. I mean, I guess both sides do that at some level. But it's like the media loves to do this. When he comes out and he says, you know what, I do care about immigrant children, and that's why we have to make sure they don't come because there's all these dangers. They just choose not to believe that, right? And they choose to believe it when he looks up at the sky and says, I'm the chosen one, that he really means he's saying God told him to raise tariffs. It's like they want to have this both ways, and it's it's ridiculous.
So if he is plagiarizing someone, is this a 10D chess move for his
10D.
race against Joe Biden? Noted plagiarist?
Yes.
Yes. I think that's
Jason,
what it
last
is.
word.
Look, I just cannot believe that fresh off of his Frito thing, that he wanted to do that. That was like his big comeback. That Trump, who like is spray tanned and isn't going to look any different till he's 110.
Right.
That's the thing that is going to bring Trump down, because he didn't want to admit that he loses sleep at night.
All right, back in a minute. Yeah, what was it, Monday? He was like, we should all be better. Welcome back. We should all... Up in overtime, President Trump is considering a payroll tax cut. We'll get, gentlemen, your thoughts on that on the backside. And also, Joe Biden, I don't know that she's going to vote for her own husband. I don't know. I'm not sure that she is. So still a lot to come, but you got to go to blazetv.com or go get it in podcast. We'll see you there.